Nice to have you join us for our meeting. While we wait for more to join us, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where in the world you're joining us from. We'll begin in a few minutes. For your information, the webinar today will also be recorded. So if you prefer to have your camera switched off, that's absolutely fine. Equally, if you don't mind having it on, that's also great. It's nice to be able to see people. Hello to those of us who've just joined. Please
Hello.
feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll begin shortly. We'll just wait a few more minutes to let people join in. Hi, Jill. Well done for joining on a train. That's very good of you. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Mary. Dumfries, not too far. Hazel, Aberdeen. Also, well, I'd say not too far. It's still a wee journey, isn't it? But thank you for joining us. Sunny Somerset, lovely. Thanks, Megan, for joining us. Tara from Dubai, I think you win the furthest award. Oh no, India as well. Oh, how lovely. Loretta is at Barcelona or Barcelona? Barcelona, yeah, okay. Just checking it wasn't somewhere I didn't know. Oh, this is lovely. I always like doing this exercise and finding out where everyone's from because we just have people from all across the world and it's lovely to get to know you all. Five, another one from Aberdeen. Ah, Alex, so you're actually in Glasgow. Lovely. So you have someone from Glasgow, not too far at all. Yeah, the weather in Glasgow is quite strange. It's supposed to be sunny, but it did just rain a few minutes ago, which is classic
Yeah,
Scottish.
I'm constantly bringing the washing in and the washing out, and then it's just the sun's just come out, but I think it's gonna have to come back in during this call.
Yeah,
So I might have
yeah.
to get up.
That's a very familiar experience I've had too. Hello to those of you that have just joined. We're just introducing ourselves in the chat and seeing where everybody is from. So we'll give it just another couple of minutes before I get started and introduce myself as well. I'll wait to do that because there's no point doing that multiple times. I can see Will's joined us. Hi, Will. South Africa. Oh, lovely. Whereabouts in South Africa are you from, Emma? Or you're from
I'm
in?
yeah, from the UK, but living in Cape Town.
Oh, lovely. I have family in Cape Town. I absolutely love it. Such a beautiful city.
I think the weather's the same today also. It's freezing but sunny, and it
Oh,
doesn't know what it's doing.
Figure from Ethiopia. Lovely. And Rory from Dublin, Ireland. Very good. Thank you all for joining us from wherever you are and all the various time differences that you're having to navigate. I really appreciate that. Hi, Vrag from Hungary. Lovely to meet you. Okay, I'll wait until it's 5 past just for a nice number and then we'll begin. For those of you that have joined us a little later, just so you are aware, this meeting is being recorded so that you can watch it back at a later date if you want to go over any of the information. And because it's being recorded, you are very welcome to turn off your camera if you don't want to have your image on the screen. That's absolutely fine. Equally, you're very welcome to leave the camera on. Okay, so it's 5 past, so I think we're going to get started. Hello, everybody. Again, thank you very much for joining us from wherever you are in the world. It's lovely to see that we have such a diverse range of people from all across. My name is Zeba Ghazali Mohammed, and I am the program convener for the MSc Psychology Conversion online distance learning program. With me today, I have Wilhelmina Toivo. Say hello, Will.
Hi, everybody. I am Zeba's deputy lead and the year 2 lead for the ODL program. Nice to see you all.
Great. Thank you, Will. And we also have Anil George, who's here as part of our admissions team to also take care of the meeting and make sure everything is gone well with the webinar and also make this accessible to everybody afterwards as well. Okay. So for today, I am going to share with you some information about our program, go over some of the more commonly asked questions, and also have a bit of time at the end for you to ask questions yourself. So while I go through the presentation, I'm going to ask that you remain muted if that's okay. I'll go through everything that I have to say. If you have any burning questions during that time or something that's just popped up that you'd like more clarity on, I'm going to ask that you put that into the chat if that's all right. And myself and will get to that at some point and answer the questions. And at the end, you're very welcome to unmute yourself and answer or ask questions live if that's okay. Does that sound all right? Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So bear with me. I think I have to ask you permission, Anil.
Yep, that's done.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Excellent. There we are. Can we see that okay? Yep, excellent. Okay. Right. So welcome everybody. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of our program. So presumably if you are here, you are either interested in joining our program for the next academic session, which begins in September, or I know many of you have also accepted offers as well. So congratulations if you have received an offer. I'm going to provide you with a little bit more information. So hopefully you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you can accept or whether or not you would like to apply. And as I say, there'll be information on that towards the end. Okay, so to give you a brief overview of our program, as you might already be aware through having a look at our university web pages, our program is part-time, it's completely online, and it takes approximately 2.5 years. Now, the minimum amount of time that you can complete this program is 2.5 years, so we can't go any faster than that. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, can I do this in a year? Can I shorten that length? The answer is no, unfortunately, because it's a part-time program. We have a certain limit to the number of credits that students are allowed to do each year, which means that the absolute fastest time that you can complete the program is 2.5 years. So it's 2 years of taught content for the first 2 years, and then that 0.5, that half a year, is actually the dissertation. So that's the kind of very final year, and that runs from slightly shorter from September to April rather than the usual September to July. So even though we have a kind of minimum 2.5 years, we do have the ability to extend your programs. If you would like to slow down the pace a little bit more, take your time on the program a little bit more, we have a maximum of 6 years for you to complete the program. And that, again, is adhering to university regulations. So I'll explain a bit more about what that would look like a bit later on. And that's something, if you are interested in slowing down that process, that is something you would get in touch with me about at the point of registration, okay? So you have time to think about it, essentially. So our program is quite unique in that it is run and managed by the School of Psychology and Neuroscience, but also in collaboration with the School of Education. And that's really just to give you the benefit of expertise from across the range of subject areas that we teach. The entire program is 180 credits, and that works out to be about 60 credits per year. And your dissertation itself is also 60 credits. The cost, as I understand it currently, and I double checked this just before, is still £15,000 in total for the entire program. And that's calculated by approximately £1,667 per 20 credits. And we do 60 credits a year, so you can work out the cost. Now, you can pay for the year. So we don't necessarily ask you to pay the 15,000 in total at the beginning. We don't have to do that, but we do ask you to pay for the courses that you are enrolled on for the year. So you can either do that at the start of the year, or as many prefer, pay in installments across the year. If you would prefer to pay in installments, that's something that you would set up with our finance team. We have a program handbook. That's a really good way of getting a good sense of the program, the courses that we teach. Can I ask everyone to mute if that's okay? I can hear myself on echo. Thank you. So yes, it's a good overview of the program, and also we cover a lot of frequently asked questions as well. So you can access the program through the link tree, and I'll put that link in the chat a bit later on as well. That link tree has got lots of useful information where you can find more information, lots of examples of what the kind of layout of the program and the sorts of tools, etc., that we use. So I'd encourage you to read the program handbook. Even if you've accepted an offer from us, it's a great way of familiarizing yourself with the program. Okay, so in terms of what you'll do or what you'd be expected to do, as I say, years 1 and 2 are your taught years. So those are the years where we teach you lots of new content, and you essentially have 10 taught courses. 8 of those courses are essential, so they're core courses. The reason they're essential is because our program is accredited by the British Psychological Society. And in order for us to get that accreditation, the British Psychological Society tells us certain things that they want students to know by the end of the program. And so we have those 8 core courses that you are required to do. You then also have 2 optional courses that you can choose from. So at the moment, we have a range of 5 courses. We have educational psychology, forensic psychology, clinical health, applied qualitative methods, and current issues in psychology. And so towards the end of your first year, you'll be asked to pick 2 optional courses that you might be interested in applying for the following year. Your final year, year 3, which is half a year, runs from September to April, just over half a year, is purely for your dissertation. It's still 60 credits, and that is a project that is supervised by a member of staff. So it's not something you need to think about right now at all. You'll get way more information nearer the time about the dissertation, the process, how it works, the sorts of topics and things that you're able to research. And the whole kind of way the program is geared up is to prepare you for that independent piece of research and allow you to develop the skills that you need to do it. So in terms of when you'll study, all our academic sessions run between mid-September to mid-July, particularly for year 1 and year 2. For year 3, we run from mid-September to the end of April. So generally speaking, we have 2 semesters. Semester 1 runs from September to February, and then we have semester 2, which runs from February to July. Within each semester, we have 14 weeks of teaching. We have 1 reading week in between. And you also have 3 holiday weeks, which are around Christmas time and also around spring break. At the end of each 14-week block in the semester, there are also 3 weeks of the assessment period. And that is where you will have a series of hand-in dates for your assessments. So all of our assessments are coursework based. They are not exam based at all. And even though our program is very flexible and it's online and it's asynchronously taught, which means that there are no live sessions, it's all sort of recorded and materials available to you. Even though it's asynchronous, it's still very structured, and our assessment dates are not flexible. They are set dates. And so it's a bit different to kind of a self-paced online course in that you're still following a very sort of regular structure, which makes us a bit different to other programs. And I'll go over that in a moment as well. And as I mentioned, your dissertation year is from September, and you submit in April with the intention of graduating around about the winter, usually December time. So why this program? There are lots of other psychology distance learning programs available. So what makes Glasgow unique? Well, first of all, we are accredited, as I mentioned earlier, by the British Psychological Society. So this is the accrediting body within the UK. And essentially, if you intend on practicing in the UK or becoming a psychologist of any type, clinical, educational, what have you, you need to have an accredited degree. And so it's kind of one of the key boxes that you need to tick. And so our program offers that accreditation. What that means is that you are getting a solid foundation of psychological knowledge that you are required to have before you progress into any postgraduate study. Accreditation does not mean that you suddenly have chartered status. What it means is that you have the graduate basis or graduate eligibility to join the Psychological Society as a member, as a graduate member, and it also means that you have the ability, therefore, to apply for certain doctorates or other postgraduate study that you may wish to pursue. it doesn't mean that you can practice as a psychologist after the master's. The reason for that is there are certain psychological careers that are accredited and are regulated by the British Psychological Society, which means that in order for you to become, for example, a clinical psychologist, you have to have done a certain qualification or certain qualifications, plural, to achieve that title status. In terms of whether or not accreditation is actually important for you, I would urge you to consider where you are in the world. So if you are in the UK, for example, and you do indeed intend on practicing in the UK, then absolutely, accreditation is very important. If, however, you are elsewhere in the world, then my advice would be it's probably worth checking out who your accrediting body is. If you have an accrediting body, there are some countries that don't. And also, if you do have an accrediting body, will they recognize this particular qualification? So, for example, a lot of European countries will recognize a BPS accredited degree, and sometimes they will allow sort of a transfer, and that's absolutely fine. So lots of people do this degree for that reason. But it's probably worth checking out, or at least thinking about, where you intend on practicing, assuming you intend on practicing as a psychologist at all. Another reason for this particular program is our expertise. So I believe we are always, I want to say we're third or second at the moment. I cannot remember for the life of me, but we are always within the top 10 for psychology in the UK. And at the moment, I think we are ranked pretty highly. And that really speaks to the expertise that we have within our program, within our university. So we have a number of staff who are experts in the field of psychology. And so you're getting really sort of, world-renowned teaching available to you. In addition to that, we are also known at Glasgow for our record of open science and highly valued training in reproducible research methods and data skills. So one of the big aspects of psychology being a social science, the science part is the kind of the research, the data skills and the statistics that you will be asked to do. And so a very key fundamental part of any accredited psychology program is statistics. And it's important that you're aware of that. So you will be taught data skills. You will be taught how to code using R. There are lots of reasons for that, but essentially what you are gaining is a new bunch of skills and actually something that is making you very competitive as a graduate in the current market. So we have a number of students that graduate from our program and actually pursue careers in data science, not necessarily in psychology, because they've gained those really valuable skills. And it's something that we are frequently commended on. So actually one of our recent external examiners mentioned us as having the Glasgow advantage because of the fact that we teach in this way. So this is probably something that we are most proud of as well, and certainly one of the key reasons that you might consider taking this program. So moving forward, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview for each of the years so you can understand a bit more about how we lay out the teaching content, and again, what you might be expecting in each of the years as we move forward. So in year one, we do recognise that we have a lot of mature learners or learners perhaps that have been away from education for some time, or even, where you are in the world. So building that familiarity with kind of learning psychology or learning on an MSc level program, we start with very small stakes assessments. So assessments that are graded, but are graded at a very small percentage. So they're building up your confidence, getting you used to what it's like working at a master's level, working at Glasgow, and kind of really using those assessments to give you some feedback and to build your skills so that you feel more confident as you move forward. You'll also have lots of opportunity for peer collaboration and feedback. So again, another aspect of this is group work. And we obviously will take into account where you are in the world and try to allocate group work as flexibly as possible. But one of the questions we often get asked is, why do I have to work in a group? Sometimes it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it is fundamental to working as a psychologist and actually part of one of our BPS accreditation strands and the skills that you are asked to develop. If you plan on working as a psychologist, whatever type of career you choose, I can guarantee you at some point you are going to have to work as a team. It's just part of being a psychologist. And so those are some skills that we aim to develop with you as you are part of the program. Usually we offer kind of group working in our research methods courses, although that may change in the future. And certainly there's lots of opportunity to work in study groups and kind of collaborate with peers and feedback with peers as well. We recognize that there is going to be a steep learning curve. That is absolutely true. That's even the case if you have studied in the UK and have just done an undergraduate degree. There is still a steep learning curve working at master's level. But with that, you bring your own existing skills, those, work skills, academic skills, life skills even. And we recognize that you will be learning a new way to learn. So, think about the fact that this is going to be very different. It's the reason we have small stakes. It's because quite often, sometimes when students get those marks back for those first assessments, they can be a little bit disappointed. But actually, it's part of the learning process. And what we find is that as you go on, those grades just get better and better. So in year one, that image below gives you a bit of an overview. So what you can see here is research methods 1 across the bottom. That is worth 20 credits, which means it's a full year course. So the whole of year one, you will be learning research methods. We'll start from scratch. We won't be assuming any knowledge of data coding or using R at all. So you start right from the very beginning. And towards the end, you'll be feeling much more confident in doing things you probably didn't expect that you could do. In semester 1, you'll also be taught human development and conceptual historical issues in psychology, affectionately known as CHIP. And in semester 2, you'll be learning cognitive psychology and physiological psychology. So again, these are all core courses. In year 2, we have a similar sort of structure. This time, in terms of assessments, we don't have those small stakes incremental assessments getting to sort of bigger assessments. What we have are far fewer assessments, but they're much higher stakes. So for example, you will be taught material on a particular course, and then right at the end, you'll have an assessment, maybe an essay, for example, and that essay is 100% of your course grade. So that's what we mean by high stakes. So we tend to do that in year 2 because A, you've had a lot of that training from year 1 to feel confident in moving towards year 2, but also we're preparing you for the dissertation because the dissertation is obviously that final thing. The entire year is based on that one grade, on that one piece of work that you are producing. So we're getting you used to that process. That said, there is always opportunity for formative learning, formative activity and task, and for you to get that feedback. So formative activities are activities that are not graded, but still allow you the opportunity to get feedback and know how to improve your work. So the focus in this year is really to build your confidence and independence in your assessments. There will still be opportunity for peer collaboration. And what's unique about year 2 is that in semester 2, you also have option courses available to select from. So here is an overview for year 2. You have research methods 2 running across the entire year, just like with research methods 1. In semester 1, you study individual differences and social psychology. And then in semester 2, you have the option of selecting 2 courses from either forensic psychology, educational psychology, clinical health, applied qualitative methods, and current issues in psychology. So don't worry if you're not quite sure which courses you're interested in just yet. There will be plenty of time for you to decide that, and we'll share lots of information about what you might expect from each of those courses at the point of selection. So we won't ask you to select your year 2 courses, option courses, until you're actually in year 2. So you've got some time to think about that. And then finally, in year 3 is very different to your other 2 courses, and that's because it's a dissertation year. So it's not quite as structured. You don't have weekly learning content that we'd expect you to do every week on week. Instead, it's going to be a time that is guided very much by your supervisor and your relationship with the supervisor. As I said earlier, it runs from September to April. You will be asked to produce an independent research project, and you will be using all of the skills that you have gained from years 1 and year 2. You will be producing a dissertation report, which is around about 10 to 12,000 words. And you'll be supervised by an individual member of staff within our School of Psychology and Neuroscience. The topic that you choose won't be something that you decide until year 3 itself, and that will be something that is negotiated between the student and the supervisor. So even if you don't have a clue where you want to go, or maybe you have a very clear idea of actually what you'd like to do a project in right now, that's fine. But the topic is still negotiated between the supervisor to make sure that you are getting the most from the expertise of the person that is supervising you. And you will also have a choice of supervisor as well. And again, we'll go through that process towards the end of year 2 so that you're very clear about what everything is moving forward. So in general, we have 3 courses per semester. And we make sure that we provide you with all of the assessment dates right at the beginning of the year so that you are very clear about when you are going to be asked to submit something and that you're able to plan your time accordingly. So we are obviously aware that if you're choosing to do an online distance learning course, there are probably many reasons for that. Perhaps you work, perhaps you have caring responsibilities, whatever it might be. And so therefore we give you the assessment dates right at the start of the year so that you can plan your time accordingly. Coursework is always released in 2-week blocks. So this again makes us quite unique from different or other online distance learning programs, is that we give you the kind of flexibility to learn at your own pace, but we provide you with content that we want you to cover week on week, and we release 2 weeks at a time, so that if you want to go ahead a little bit, that's okay. If you want to slow down a little bit, that's okay too. But your assessment periods are always at the same time. So assessments are, set right at the very beginning, and you are expected to complete the work that you need to do in order for you to be able to do the assessment on time. We don't have any live sessions at all, so it is an asynchronous online distance learning program. All of the talk content is entirely self-paced and asynchronous. That said, we do have a lot of live sessions, particularly when it comes to supporting assessments. We have lots of live Q&A sessions, for example. The other thing that makes us very unique as a university is that every staff member has weekly office hours. So you can just jump into someone's office hours at any point. It can be to talk about assessment. It could be to talk about any issues that you're having. It could just be to say hello or to talk about career options, whatever it might be. So there's always that opportunity for one-on-one FaceTime, if you like, with every staff member that is available at the school and particularly on our program. So even though there are no live sessions, there is still lots of opportunity to talk and collaborate with lots of people and get to know each other from our online communities. So generally speaking, we would expect around 21 hours of study a week. That includes going over all of your lecture content, which are going to be sort of mini recordings, all of your reading material that is essential, any formative activities that might be there for you to complete, and also any study that you are going to be required to do for your summative assessments. So the summative assessments are the things that are graded and will give you the mark for the course. So to give you a snapshot of what it looks like in a week, I've literally just taken a screenshot of our online platform Moodle, and this is for week 1 of Conceptual and Historical Issues, or CHIP in psychology. So what you can see here is that in week 1, it goes over the aims of the course, the aims of the week. So it's basically introducing you to the course, a couple of key concepts. You can see right at the top, there's a checklist of things. You can click on that checklist and it will tell you precisely what you need to do for that week, which I know many students find very helpful. There is a reading list that you'll have access to. So one of the things that we will also do is never ever expect you to pay for textbooks or anything like that. We always provide you freely accessible reading materials online. And then you can see that you have some lecture content. There's part 1, part 2, part 3 of kind of lecture recordings. There's another activity that seems to maybe tells you a little bit about an experiment or a video recording of the experiment so you can see what's going on, a bit of extra content for you. And then at the end, there's also a forum. So some courses might have a forum available where you can collaborate and talk to peers, post a question, maybe you'll be asked to submit something in particular, just to get you to engage with the program and with each other as well. So that gives you a really kind of rough overview of what you can expect week on week and what you can kind of see on the program. The checklists, as I mentioned, have been something that our students year on year tell us that they really, really appreciate. So I thought I would just show you a couple of examples of different checklist from week 7 that we have in semester 1. So you can see for research methods 1, again, it's like do the essential reading, watch the lecture, maybe test your knowledge in a couple of things. For human development, again, it's watching the lectures, doing the essential readings. And those little blue arrows are essentially taking you directly to the links for things that you have to do. So we try and organize things in a way that make it very intuitive, very easy for you to understand exactly what it is that you were required to do for each week. Okay, so it's very structured and hopefully very supportive. Now, in terms of tasks, activities, and assessments, I've sort of gone over some of this already, but we'll have mini lecture recordings every week. You will also have weekly readings. Now, some of those readings will be absolutely essential for the understanding the lecture content. Other readings will be optional, and those are really there for extra background reading, things that you might be interested in, or it might be whenever you come to doing an assessment and you want a bit more kind of background research to do, those optional readings are going to be a really good avenue to pursue. We split assessments into formative and summative assessments. So formative assessments are assessments and you'll receive feedback on them, but they don't contribute towards the overall course grade. So it's a great opportunity, obviously, to receive feedback and help you to develop your work. A summative assessment is kind of your end of year or end of course assessment usually, and that can be a variety of different things. It could be a wee quiz, it could be a portfolio, it could be an essay or a lab report. And it will always be coursework based. It won't ever be an exam. And those summative assessments are the things that contribute towards your course grade. Okay. So that's usually how we split things up. In terms of support and contact, even though we are an online distance learning program, there is still lots of opportunity for you to engage and talk to people. And to do that, we rely on Microsoft Teams very heavily. So when you join, you will have access to Microsoft Teams and we'll give you the suite of all the kind of software that you might need. And so Teams is kind of the way that we will always communicate with you the most. You will always have a Monday message. So if you're in year one, the Monday message will come from myself. It's just to anchor your week, to let you know what's coming up, any important announcements, any sort of seminars that we have going on or events that you might like to join in on online. Usually staff are contactable via email or Teams, and we'll always aim to reply to you within 24 hours, aside from weekends. So obviously we work sort of usual business hours. Everything on our program, from Q&A activities, release of content, assessments, will always be based on UK hours. So Greenwich Mean Time or British Summer Time, depending on whether we're in the summer or the winter. We always have weekly drop-in office hours as well, as I mentioned earlier. You can come either individually or you can come as a group, and those will be available on Zoom or on Teams. And equally, for every assessment, you will also have a Q&A session that is hosted live, and it will always be recorded as well, again, on Zoom or on Teams. You will always have myself as program lead, but you'll also have an academic advisor for each year that you are in. So I am year one advisor. You met Will earlier. She is year two advisor. We have Dr. Kate Reed, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. She is year three advisor. So every student in every year has an advisor that they can go to for any pastoral support. If you have any health issues, personal issues that you wish to talk about, if you're thinking about extending your degree program, I mentioned earlier that you have up to 6 years to complete. All those sorts of things you would talk to your advisor about, and they would advise you, as you can imagine. With students, we also have student representatives. So if you would like to give feedback on your course or any of the teaching content, you're able to do that via your representative. We have lots of communication happening on Teams, lots of discussion boards, even study groups will help encourage and support the creation of those. And equally, we also have something known as a virtual coffee room. So this is where we have a bit more informal chat, not necessarily to do with work, but just getting to know each other, and so that you feel that you're part of an online community as well, which we really strongly encourage. We also have student learning and development service. So if you need support with academic writing, for example, we have a service that will help you to do that. We have a career service and also a disability service as well, should you require the use of that or any adjustments, etc. So I would always recommend that before you accept or before you start, have a read of the program handbook. And that's available at that Linktree link at the bottom there. And I'll make sure to put that in the chat in a moment. I would also ask you to consider your available time and your commitments. I mentioned earlier that this is a part-time degree. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, can I do this degree alongside my full-time job? And my honest answer to that is probably not. A part-time degree takes the same number of hours as a part-time job. So realistically, would you be able to do a part-time job alongside your full-time job? Probably not is the answer. So I think if you're working part-time or you have a very, very flexible working way, then perhaps. But generally speaking, you know, we have our expectations of around 21 hours a week of student focus on our particular program. If you're able to dedicate that time alongside whatever else you have going on, then absolutely. We also have a summer reading list available. So if you want to, you know, familiarize yourself with psychology, refresh your memory, whatever it might be, there's also a summer reading list that you can take a look at as well, should you join us in September. And all of that is available on that link tree. To be successful on this program, a couple of tips from myself and other staff on the program is to leave your expectations at the door and, come in and embrace the way that we are teaching and the content that we are teaching as well. Definitely expect to be challenged. It is an MSc. We will be teaching you at MSc level, and it is going to be challenging. But also remember that you are going to be learning so many skills, and hopefully that's going to be really rewarding for you. Definitely plan your year. Usually students that take an online distance learning program have lots of other commitments going on. So we recognize that that's going to be really challenging, and we do everything that we can to be very clear about how our program is structured and when assessments are taking place so that you are able to manage and plan your time. Definitely communicate with your advisor. Should anything come up, should your circumstances change, whatever it might be, do communicate with us so that we can support you. You name it, we have heard it. We've been on this program for a number of years, and we have experienced all sorts of different situations with students. So don't be afraid to come and talk to us. Let us know anything that's going on in your life so that we can support you or point you in the right direction. Definitely engage with us. Seek that support from your community online. Lots of students, it's great for us as educators when we can see you on Teams and communicating with each other and talking, responding to our messages and getting to know us. But also remember that, if you're going to work hard, also play hard. Make sure that you enjoy yourself and also take the time off and re-energize when you have the ability to do so. Okay? And obviously, definitely on an online distance learning program, make sure that you engage with us and communicate with us. If anything happens and you change your mind or, life changes as well, it is possible for you to defer an offer. It's only possible before registration and enrollment. So if you have received an offer or when you will receive an offer, at that point, it's possible for you to defer. And what we'll do is hold your offer available for a year so that you can join us this time next year, essentially, or around August next year, and you can join again with that same offer. So if you want to defer, that's the time you can do it. You can't defer midway through a year or once teaching has begun. It is possible for you to reduce your course load or extend the length of the program. So I mentioned earlier that you have 60 credits a year. 60 credits are the maximum that you can take each year. The minimum is 20 credits. So it is possible to slow down your course a little bit. So for example, all of your year 1 courses you can take over 2 years instead of 1. All of your year 2 courses you can take over 2 years instead of 1. Your dissertation is the only thing that can't be slowed down. That has to take a full year and it has to be at the end, and you have to have completed all of your taught courses before you move on to the dissertation. So it is possible to slow down the pace should you require it. And again, if that's something that you're interested in doing, that would usually be a conversation that you have with your advisor of studies, who would be myself, at the point of registration and enrollment. There is a possibility for maternity or carer's leave or even a leave of absence should you require that for any health-related or personal reasons. And again, if that's something that comes up, that is something that you would contact your advisor about, myself, at any point of the year, at the point of, needing that advice. It is also possible to withdraw. We do have fee liability deadlines, which you need to consider, and all of those are outlined in our handbook. But essentially, there are key points in the year for which you can receive a refund or a partial refund. After week 13 of teaching, no refund is available, and you are liable for the fees for that year. So just watch those deadlines if you start and you realize that maybe the program isn't for you. It is also possible to have an early exit. So maybe you realize at the end of year 1 that this isn't for you, or maybe, as I say, life change happens and it's not possible for you to progress. If you've completed all of your year 1 courses, you are eligible to receive a postgraduate certificate. If you complete all of your year 1 and year 2 courses, you are eligible to receive a postgraduate diploma, providing that you pass all your courses, of course. It's only the dissertation that converts everything to a degree, if you like. So there's lots of options kind of at the end of every year for you to exit if you needed to, or if you choose to do so. So in terms of a couple of useful dates, useful information, induction week begins on the 15th of September. This is really where I'll contact you to register and enroll, do some of your induction activities to familiarize yourself with all of our platforms so that when teaching begins on the 22nd of September, you can get straight into it and get going. Again, there's lots of pre-arrival information and about all of that on our link tree that you can have a look at. I thought I'd kind of end with a couple of frequently asked questions before I open it up for other questions from yourselves. So a couple of FAQs. We are fully online. There is no necessary requirement to visit us on campus. You are, however, able to graduate on campus should you wish to do so. So I have a number of students, for example, last year that came and joined us for graduation. It was lovely to see them the first time that we met in person. And it's really a real joy to kind of celebrate with them. Occasionally, we have students that are in and around Glasgow or are visiting, and you're also very welcome to come visit us on campus. In fact, I had a student come in on Tuesday to say hello, and it was lovely to see them, a first year student who was actually here for a stag do of all reasons. But it was great. He popped in and said hello, and it was just lovely to have a chat. You don't need a student card, but if you would like to request one, you absolutely can. Sometimes a student card can be helpful for you to gain access to a university library that might be near you, so you're able to request that online. There are on-campus versions of an MSc conversion. So if you would prefer to be on campus, we do have an on-campus version. It is full-time, not part-time, and it's not possible to switch between the two. So if you're interested in the on-campus version, let us know. We can share some information about that, or equally, you can find information on the university web pages. I mentioned earlier, we don't recommend that you work full-time and do this master's. People that have done that in the past have found it extremely challenging, and one of the things has to drop. So unless you have a lot of flexibility with your work, I would probably recommend not doing that. Excuse me. We use Microsoft Office Suite and Teams heavily to communicate with you, and if that's not software that you have available, it's freely available from the university anyway, so we'll be able to sort that out for you, no problem. All assignments, activities, office hours will be UK time, as I mentioned earlier. There's lots of support available for anybody registered with a disability. If you do have a disability, I would recommend that you contact our disability service as soon as possible. As you can imagine, when you start in September, they are inundated with requests. So if you do have an offer or you've accepted an offer, definitely get in touch with the disability MT if it's required, and any provision that comes out of discussing with them will be shared with your course leads and myself. We don't expect any prior knowledge of statistics or psychology. So when you start, we essentially treat you as though you have no understanding of psychology at all. And we start very, right from the beginning with the basics and build up your knowledge. And finally, the application deadline is the end of August for you to apply. So if you haven't already applied, you still have lots of time to do so. And certainly if you have any questions, I would encourage you explore the link tree, and anything that's not answered there, come and talk to us. I'm going to stop sharing just a moment. Here we are. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I'm a bit dry-mouthed. I can see that there are a few questions in the chat, so I'll briefly have a look at those. But at this point, if you have any questions that you would like to ask, you're very welcome to unmute yourself or raise a hand, or equally write it in the chat if you would prefer to do so. I've got one from Anya here. Offer holder, I've not received further communication since December. I'd like to know any pending deadlines, visa registration, whether a course schedule is available. Hi, Anya. If you are one of the few people that received an offer very early on, the only reason you haven't heard from us is that our application process is still open. So once you have accepted an offer and that you have received an unconditional offer, so if you've accepted, or sometimes if you have a conditional offer, they might say that we need to see certain documentation. Once you've done all that, you've got your unconditional offer and you've accepted that, it's usually sit and wait until August. At August, I usually email all of our prospective students with information about how to register and enroll, and that will give you lots of information about what to do. Oh, you have accepted. Excellent. In the meantime, there is lots of information, as I mentioned, on that link tree. Let me get the link out just now while I have it. And on that link tree, I would just suggest going through the documentation, reading the program handbook, and there'll be lots of information there to familiarize yourself. But usually it's sit tight until August, and that's when I will get back to you with more information about how to enroll and register. Okay. Rory, is there a limit or capacity on the number of candidates on optional modules? Yes. that there is a limit on the capacity. So generally speaking, it will be first come, first served. And what we normally do is at the end of year one, we will share all of the optional modules that are available. We will encourage you to talk to course leads so that you get a flavor of, what's expected of you on that course or what you can expect to find on that course. And then as soon as registration opens, we will ask that you enroll on it. What I will say is that these option modules have absolutely zero bearing on your future career. So if you plan on going into educational psychology, you don't need to do an educational psychology option module. Absolutely not. It's not something that recruiters will look for or anything like that. Okay, so it's really just what is it that you are interested in? What is it that you would like to know a bit more about? And we'll go from there. Right, I'm going to switch over to our raised hands. I think Hazel was first. Hazel, you have a question.
Hi, thank you so much for that. That was really useful. I just have a couple of questions. The first one would be if you if you finish in April, but you graduate in winter, would that impact your ability to start either a training program or a PhD or a DPsych that same year? Would you have to wait until you graduate and then apply for the following year?
That's a really good question. The answer is it depends. So to be honest with you, if like right now, our students have just handed in their dissertation. So it's usually the end of April. It takes us a couple of months to mark. June is generally when we will put the dissertations through our board of exams. So that means that's when your grades will be ratified. At that point, we know what your grade is and have a very clear indication of what your award is likely to be as well. So if it's ever required that the place that you are applying to, whether that is a job or a program, needs a transcript or needs a letter from myself or our admin team to say, yep, this is probably the expected grade of the student, or this is currently what they have got, we can provide that. And usually they're okay with that. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, we'll accept you, but as soon as you get your degree, give us a copy of that, and then that will turn it into an unconditional offer. Different institutions will have different requirements, but we will always do our very best to provide you with any information that we can help support that application moving forward. It's a good question.
Okay. Thank you. And then I also wanted to ask about the 21 hours a week. Can you plan your studying over the space of a month as opposed to a week? And the only reason I ask is that my husband has work commitments, which means he goes away, and we have young children, and I've got no doubt in my mind that I would have the capacity to do those hours over the space of a month, but there may be some weeks where I would struggle to do that on top of my other commitments.
The answer is yes. I mean, if you can be as flexible as you can be within the assessment deadlines that we have provided you with. So we share information in kind of 2-week chunks. So if you have that 2 weeks, you can do what you like with that information in the time that you have to do it in. Sometimes students take a little bit longer. I know from a lot of students, sometimes they can be a week behind, 2 weeks behind. We have breaks in between, which give you the opportunity to catch up on. What I would say is have a look at the assessment deadlines right at the start of the year. So we always release them right at the beginning of the year so that you can plan your time. So okay, right, that's going to be a real crunch week for me. I need to make sure that I've got childcare in place, or I need to make sure that I've got whatever it might be, right? So we try and give you the deadlines right at the beginning. The 21 week is basically a guide for how long you should be learning for, if that makes sense. So for some students, it will be quicker. If you have done a degree before, if you've done a master's before, whatever it might be, maybe, English is not your first language, whatever it might be, it gives you a guide as to how likely you are going to need to spend on this content to do well in it. For some weeks, it's going to be a bit more. For some weeks, it'll be a bit less. So I think, the flexibility is the key there. And as long as you are hitting your assessments and, not falling too behind or struggling, absolutely. Equally, if you feel you need a bit more time and you want to space out your degree, that's another option that we can discuss.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not at all, Hazel. Right, before I jump to you, Kevin, I'm just going to do another question from the chat because they're coming in. So one from Amelia, is it possible to extend the program length initially and then speed up if the circumstances changes? Yes, it is. Oh, Will's already answered that, sorry. Jonathan, is there any flexibility to entry requirements? Example, 2-1 degree with honours, would a 2-2 with relevant work experience? I believe so, Jonathan. I think that's what it says on our website, but I would basically talk to admissions. Sometimes I say put in an application. If they require more evidence, they will let you know what that evidence is. Okay. Kevin, let's come to you next.
Thanks very much for the content. I think you answered the question in a way from Hazel's question, but it was to do with the amount of effort to put in. You recommend to not do full time, but my question was, if you've signed up to do a part-time long distance, is that would that be a similar suggestion to not work full time?
So if you signed up to do this program as in part-time long distance, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So it's not a no. You know, there's no requirement for us that if you have a full-time job that we would not accept you. Not at all. This is purely from what we recommend in terms of the hours required to do well on our program and actually feel comfortable. We will tell you, both myself and Will, we advise a number of students, and usually the ones that have a lot of difficulty are the ones that are working full time because they can't always dedicate the time required for this program. It is part-time, and I think a lot of people feel that that means it might not be as challenging, but actually there is a lot of content that you have to get through, and particularly if you don't have a psychology background or a statistics background, it can be very challenging. So our recommendation would be that it's going to be quite difficult. If you have flexibility in your work or support around you, whatever it might be, that you feel confident that you're able to do that, by all means go for it. We have had students do it in the past, but we know that those that do struggle a little bit. So it's really a judgment call for yourself to make.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, not at all. I mean, it's a good question. Naomi, hey, the registration week on the 15th September, is there set deadlines for completion of documents, etc. this week and live sessions that we must attend? So there are no live sessions in induction week at all. We have an induction session, and I usually tend to run a couple of sessions that are live, but they will also be recorded. So if for whatever reason you can't make those sessions, maybe it's the timing or wherever you are in the world, they're always recorded. So as long as you watch an induction session or attend an induction session, you'll be absolutely fine. There are set deadlines for completion of the documents. So if you've already applied and you have a conditional offer, the admin team will give you a deadline for when you need to send them certain documentation for them to then give you an unconditional offer. So once that's been done, then there are no other deadlines. Induction week is really just to familiarize yourself with things that would be good to do in that week. And then teaching will begin the following week. So I think ideally you'll have done all your induction activities by the end of that week. They're nothing taxing, certainly nothing going to take you, 21 hours or anything like that. Just a couple of hours to get through and familiarize yourself with the platforms. It shouldn't take you very long at all. Loretta, are there any pre-recorded mini lectures delivered by your teaching team? Yes, it's all pre-recorded lecture content. Some programs use generic recorded content. No, it will always be specific to whatever course that you are learning or whatever subject that you are learning that particular week. Quite often, our teaching teams will also update lots of recordings. So right now, I know that there are staff going through their recordings in preparation for semester 1 next year. So we'll always give you the most up-to-date content as much as possible. How many hours of teaching time is there typically per module? It sort of varies. I would say per course, the lecture content itself is probably an hour's worth. In addition to that, you then have your own readings to do, your own notes to do, potentially any other activities to do. But the lecture content is usually, for a 10-credit course, about an hour's time. But as I say, it's not just what you are given, it's also what you do with that information and the study time that we're expecting you to contribute towards that. Megan, is there a limit to the number of students accepted onto our full course? Not at the moment, no. If that changes, I shall let you know. Are there opportunities to co-publish in psychology journals? Potentially. I think Will's already answered that question anyway. Yes, there's opportunities for you to volunteer. And then potentially, depending on your dissertation project, there may also be an opportunity to publish. It really just depends on the situation at the time. Are you able to access on-campus resources? Yes. If you're local, absolutely. Oh, Alexandria, sorry, I see your hand now.
Hi, it was just about the group sessions mandatory. I'm all for group sessions, of course. But how's that coordinated to sort of fit around everyone's schedule? I'm looking at, I mean, I do work full time, but I do have quite a flexible schedule in that, like, I've got the morning off, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
And I'm going to the hospital this afternoon. So I plan to negotiate a dedicated study day a week.
Yeah.
But obviously that might not be when the group sessions are on, or how would that work?
Good question. And I am actually going to throw this one to Will, because Will is one of our course tutors on RM2, and part of that course you are required to do a group assessment. So I'll let her explain exactly what they do.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
So there's no scheduled timetabled group sessions. So what we do in both Research Methods 1 in year 1 and Research Methods 2 in year 2 is that we put you into a group. We give you so we collect some information based on where you are and when you're working, so that we can put you in groups with people who have similar patterns. But basically, you develop your own system as a group. So you can decide whether you're going to catch up at a specific time every week, or if you're going to change the time depending on what people's work schedules look like, or if it's better to catch up on an online chat. We've had all of those options in the past few years, so there isn't one specific session that you need to go to, and all of the groups kind of get to do it for what works for them. We usually try to limit the group number to maximum of 5 or 6 students, so that it doesn't become impossible to schedule with everybody's different life circumstances. But yeah, that's broadly how it works. So I wouldn't worry too much. People tend to find a way of working with each other once they're placed in a group.
Brilliant. Okay, great.
So I'd say we're very familiar with the fact that, obviously, I mean, just from looking at our chat, we have people from all across the world, lots of different time zones. So we take that into consideration, but also, like you say, if there are specific times or days that work best for people, just to have the opportunity to share that, and so that everyone can work together to find that time. Okay.
Great,
So-
yeah. Sorry, just one more question, if that's
Sure.
okay. I think the session lists are wonderful, and they're great for someone like me, because I like to be very organized and I'm very used to ticking off tasks with my current career. Just out of interest, with that session list, not that I plan to sort of blast it off in one day, but if for whatever reason I had to blast it off in one day, do you think that's possible? I appreciate there's like a bit of information overload potentially, but is it really something that could be done on that dedicated day?
Yes. It would
Okay.
depend on the week's content, and it might be possible
Sure.
for one course, not another course, and it really depends on what the actual task is. But for some weeks, it will absolutely be possible. For other weeks, maybe not so.
Sure. Wonderful. Thank you. Great.
Not at all. I'm going to go back to the questions in the chat. So Omar, who should I contact to discuss tuition fee payment options or funding arrangements? That will be our finance team. At what stage in the process? That will be once you have accepted an offer. So once you've accepted an offer, and then you'll be asked to register and enroll, that will automatically trigger the kind of financial process. And at that point, that's when you would discuss with the finance team. So it's not something we can help you with as program administration. We're solely around the teaching aspect of stuff. But if it's a finance question, you direct that to the finance team. If you are going to extend your degree to 4 years, that's absolutely no problem at all. You don't need to discuss that with finance. All that happens there is we can work out whether or not to enroll you or unenroll you from certain courses, and the finance side will automatically adjust. Okay. But again, if that's something you wish to do, it's at the point of registration and enrollment that you will contact your advisor of studies, who will then have that conversation with you, make a plan for what your program is going to look like year on year, so that the expectations are there, and then we can go from that step. So you'll have plenty of time to do that. Your second question is interesting. So I'm drawn to understanding mental health in its broader structural, cultural, and political context. Curious of how the MSc approaches or balances the medicalized pathologizing model of psychology with more critical, systemic, decolonizing, or interdisciplinary perspectives on mental health. Could you speak to how these tensions are addressed in the curriculum? Excellent question. So we will always, as much as possible, be very critical of those models. And it's fantastic that you are already asking this question. So we very much will avoid anything that kind of uses a pathologizing model. We do our very best to decolonize our psychology curriculum. In fact, that's actually my area of expertise within the university. Very passionate about decolonizing the psychology curriculum, do an awful lot of work in that aspect. And that is something that we work towards as a program. So we continually try and incorporate a lot of the kind of more contemporary literature and the contemporary research. And what you'll find is that a lot of our teaching staff are also scholars around teaching in higher education, as well as does have their own expertise in whatever course they're teaching on. And actually, this is something we do very, very well. So while I can't speak to how that is addressed specifically for each course, what I can tell you at a program level, we absolutely take these into consideration and incorporate that as part of our teaching and assessment. Okay, so I hope that reassures you. Jonathan, in the presentation, it was said that if you want to do clinical psych, we'll need to do further studies, rightfully so. What about a general practitioner? Would this master's be sufficient? I'm unclear about what you mean about being a general practitioner. A general practitioner of psychology, I wouldn't know what that is. Now, this is, again, where the tension lies in terms of what's possible in the UK and what might be possible elsewhere. So we're obviously a UK-based degree. I'm going to have more knowledge around what's available in the UK. In the UK, psychologist isn't a protected title. There are protected titles like clinical psychologist, educational psychologist. Those are the ones that are required for you to be registered as part of the BPS Psychological Society to practice. There are other titles, for example, like therapist. Anyone can call themselves a therapist. So those aren't protected titles. So I think it's a hard one to answer unless we know where you are in the world, where you intend on practicing, and also what you mean by general practitioner. It will vary. But I would definitely figure out, depending on where you are in the world, what the pathway would be. And there'll be lots of information on that just through online searches. Omar, again, if I enroll in the MSc part-time, how and when can I formally request an extension? Okay, so that will be at the point of registration and enrollment, as I mentioned earlier. Thanks, Will, you've already answered that. Beg your pardon. No problem. Tara, quick question regarding the reference we need to submit when applying. If I'm providing employer reference, what does the reference need to contain? Is it substantial reference about the candidate setting? Why it would be a good candidate for MSc, just a formal reference? I think it's either, to be honest with you, Tara. What I would do is submit the reference. If the admin team require more information, they will let you know. Administrations team, not administration, admissions team. My mind is not working today. We're not involved with the admissions side of things, so I can only advise. If you have questions on that front, I would definitely speak to admissions and they'll be able to provide you more information. Virag, if Will's already answered that question. Thank you, Will. Omar, does the program offer a balanced approach to do more quantitative and qualitative research methods? Yes.
I can take that one.
Please do.
Yes, so quite a large part of the program is the research method. So you will do 40 credits across the 2 years plus your dissertation. We teach both. Year one research method is quantitative, but it's also going through the kind of basics of how is research done in psychology, talking a bit about reproducibility, how do we do research well. Then in year two, you kind of finish off the statistics and quantitative stuff, and then you do qualitative. And in the year two, you do a full qualitative project as well. So there's quite a good balance between both of them. I think the question about publishing was already asked earlier. It is possible. I am working with a couple of students from previous years. I just want to be mindful that academic publishing takes time and quite a lot of effort. So don't expect to have it published when you finish it. It might take a few years. We provide some kind of schemes. There's the students as research assistants. Just basically you can volunteer on staff research projects to get a bit more research experience. And we've had very successful ODL students do those projects previously. So loads of opportunities to engage beyond the RM courses if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely. Just to give you an example, I had one ODL student who joined me on a summer project last summer, and she was in her year two, and we were working on a project. It gained a lot of attention. It was actually on decolonizing psychology. We were invited to publish in a special issue, and we've just published a paper together, and she's a year three student. Now, that is very rare. I'm not saying that's going to happen to absolutely everybody, but as Will said, there are lots of opportunities. And if you're keen, and actually if you're very good at what you do and managing your time, there are certainly opportunities there for you to take hold of and work with lots of staff members if that's something that you're interested in doing. Amelia, you mentioned year two assessments are more heavily weighted towards your
I've
final
answered that.
grade. Oh, you have.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I think just to be aware of that wording, it's not that they're more heavily weighted. All of your kind of assessments are weighted the same. In that they contribute towards 100% of your course grade. It's just how we break up that 100% will be different. So in year one, we break it up a little bit more. So maybe you have 10% here, 20% there, whatever. In year two, it's more 100%. So that one opportunity. The only difference is for the research methods courses, as Will said. So those for research methods, we break them up because, again, you're learning completely new skills, and those are kind of iteratively developed. So RM is the only exception. But generally, as I said, we're preparing you for the dissertation. Okay, I think I've covered all of the questions. And I very much appreciate that that's a lot of information that we have given you. This webinar will be made available to you. I think it goes back onto the website. And certainly that link tree that I shared, and I've got it again, here we are. There we go, is also full of lots of useful information. So I would encourage you to take note of that link tree and have a read of the program handbook. It goes through lots of different questions that most students have. I would say about 90% of the questions we get are probably answered on that link tree. So have a look on there. And if there are any other questions that you really can't find or that you are absolutely burning to ask us, then by all means get in touch and send us an email and we'd be happy to answer those questions. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us and for logging on wherever you are in the world. If you have accepted an offer, we look very much to working with you in the coming months. And certainly if you're thinking about applying, I hope this has reassured you that we are a passionate group of people. We really enjoy what we do and we're really good at what we do as well. So fingers crossed that you feel the same way and we look forward to welcoming you on our program. Thank you very much, everybody.